Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Let's get crafting. For this DIY, we are going to be using 5 of these wood blocks from the Dollar Tree, as well as a long skewer stick that we're going to be cutting down into a whole bunch of little nubby pieces. This is going to bring all of these blocks together. So we are going to drill a hole in the first one, only on one side, and then on the other 4, we're going to drill a hole on the top and the bottom. Make sure you're checking to make sure the hole that you're drilling is the right size for your little nubby pieces that we just cut, so we can bring it all together and make it really strong and sturdy. So I went ahead and added in some wood glue into those holes and then added in the pegs. We're going to call them pegs. I'm going to stop calling them nubby pieces. And then we're going to go ahead and add on some hot glue and bring them together. Now, to make this a little bit different and special, I'm going to just rotate those pieces as I'm putting them on. And then once they're all dry and in place, I'm going to go ahead and use a really pretty light gray color for this. And I'm going to make sure I go all the way around all the sides on the top and the bottom. And I don't want it to be so saturated in gray. I want to make sure that wood is still coming through with a little bit of that wood look to it. Now we're going to take an end of a floral pick piece from the Dollar Tree. I snap that off and I'm going to glue that in at the very top because we are going to thread on a wooden bead and then as well as one of these little finial tops to make the top of this piece look really finished and really beautiful. So go ahead and add some hot glue as you're putting those pieces on to make sure everything is staying in place for you and that it won't come off over time. Once those are all glued in place, go ahead and take a pencil, or if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette, you can also cut out letters if you don't feel comfortable hand painting. I personally love hand painting just because I love the way it looks and it's really therapeutic for me, so I went ahead and sketched out my letters and we're going to do the word peace. Now, I had a viewer say to me the other day that she's noticed that so many people are doing joy, and I wanted to do this shout out for my friend who asked me to do a peace DIY. I love the word peace. I think it's such a wonderful word to have in our home at Christmas time and all year long. I know that we all need a little more peace in our lives. So once I painted on all of my letters with my fine tip brush in white, I went ahead and moved on to the top. I took off this greenery piece from a bell, and I'm going to be using the bell for another DIY later. I tied it on with some twine, and then to finish the look, I added some hot glue to put on a cute bow, and it was ready to display. Today is my 10 on Tuesday. I'm so excited to be doing this series all throughout the Christmas season. And my collab partner I'm doing this with is Hot and Humble Pie. Her name is Holly. She is super talented, has had her channel for a little under a year, and she makes the coolest DIYs. Make sure you head over to her channel. I'm going to have her linked at the end of my video as well as down below in my description box, and you will be blown away by the creativity that Holly has. And Holly, thanks so much for teaming up with me today. I love doing collabs like these with other creative YouTubers. For this DIY, we're going to be using 4 long skewer sticks, some greenery, some berries, and some twine. Now, this is such a fun farmhouse DIY, but it has a little bit of a modern boho feel to it, and you're going to see why. So I started by taking my skewer sticks and I'm going to cut out 2 pieces that are the same length, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to create one that's a little bit shorter to create the shape of a Christmas tree. Now, these were super popular and trendy around the summertime and the springtime. I saw a whole bunch of people making these, and they put florals on them that were more geared to those seasons. But I thought, how cool would it be to do this again, but this time for Christmas? And then you're going to see at the very end, I've decided to, instead of having them being 3 separate little decor pieces, I decided to bring them all together to become one Christmas tree. And I felt like it was a fun twist on this whole idea I've seen happening a lot here on YouTube throughout this last few months. So I want to make sure I'm strengthening those corners because these are just shish kebab sticks and they are going to pop right apart if we don't. So I cut off a couple little small pegs or nubs and then I glued them down into place really well. And we're not even going to see those parts because we're going to end up covering them up with some pretty things on them. And now I'm going to go in with a really beautiful foresty green color. At the top of each of them, I'm going to put a star that I have on hand from Hobby Lobby. I bought a pack of these with a coupon. And I'm just going to glue them on at the top to make sure that they're nice and secure and on there so they won't pop off over time. Now this is where I was saying that you can have them being 3 separate things like we see a lot on Pinterest and here on YouTube, or we can bring them all together and create something super cool. So what I want to do to make sure everything is nice and secure on here is I'm taking a piece of twine, I glue it down first, and now I'm going to take some greenery. I decided to, instead of doing the Dollar Tree garlands that they have, I wanted to use something that's more modern and up to date. So I'm going to be using this boxwood that I buy on a really long vine from Hobby Lobby, and I just cut that thing apart until I basically have nothing left, and then I go and buy a new one. So I went ahead and just put those on, glued them, and kept twisting the twine around it, and did the same thing with the berries. And then I repeated the same thing on the other side, meeting right up into the middle. This is the best way to put these on. Then to conceal the middle and all the mess that it might be with all the twine, I went ahead and took some of this really pretty ribbon from the Dollar Tree, went around it a few times, and then I'm now going to add a bow on the largest one. The other 2 smaller ones, I decided not to add a bow, and you'll see it at the end. But if you're deciding to do these as 3 separates, you could end up doing them the 3 different ones with the ribbons on it. That could be really cute too. I love how dainty and simple these are, and if you love that modern farmhouse look without it being too complicated, this is a really great DIY to try. So now I'm going to start bringing them together. So what I did was I laid each of the triangle Christmas tree pieces on top of each other where I liked the spacing, and then I'm coming back in with my twine and I'm just tying them right at their connecting joints, and then I glue that into place. Then to conceal it so you don't see that messiness again, we're going to come back in with some of that greenery, some of the berries, and some of the ribbon. And then after I'm done with doing all of that, we now need to go ahead and move on to create the loop up at the top so we can hang it up. This part's really simple. I just used a little piece of twine, hot glued it all into place, and then once it was dry, it was ready to be hung up and to display it in my home. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you are returning, thanks for coming back. My name is Heidi Sonboul, and this is my DIY channel. I love doing DIYs. I am a 3rd generation crafter. Here on my channel, I'm posting on Tuesdays for my 10 on Tuesday and Friday for my Friend Fridays. Now, on my channel, you're going to get all kinds of crafts and inspiration this Christmas season, so don't forget to click the subscribe button, and please give this video a thumbs up. This DIY is super simple, and there's been so many different variations of it, but I wanted to do something different because I came up with this technique at the beginning of this Christmas season. I love adding this texture to my DIYs, these little bumps, and I know they're just a little bit of bling that a lot of people use on scrapbooking, but these are so cool when you see what we're going to do with them. So I'm just taking them and going along all the edges of my plate, and then as well on my candle stem. So I'm going to go around the middle part, and then I'm going to come down to the base and also go around the base. Now we're going to be doing a whitewash with these, and it is going to look so cool. Instead of doing the regular distressing that we do, we're going to end up doing it with white, and it's going to look so cool. Here I am busting open a new bottle of E6000. That last one that you saw in my last video, I was just squeezing the life out of that thing, trying to make sure I got every drop. So I like to do it in 3 parts. I do 3 different areas of the E6000, and then I come back in the opened areas and I add in the hot glue in those other 3 areas to make sure that it's nice and sealed. The hot glue is for a short-term hold, and the E6000 is for a long-term hold. Once you have that all done, take it outside and spray paint it all the color that you want. I went with red because that's the color I'm doing for our home this Christmas season. And now we're going to start working on that white paint. So I'm just putting very little, not too crazy, because we're going to be wiping away the majority of it. We want the white to fall in between all of those bumps and those grooves, because it adds the prettiest detail. Then when you're all done with the white part, go ahead and take some of your glossy Mod Podge and go ahead and just rub that all over the whole thing and then really let it dry. Now I definitely would not put cookies on this, but you could if you put down a little cloth with it, but this could definitely be the cutest thing to put on little treats or some candles. So pretty for Christmas. For this next DIY, it is super simple. We are going to take these golden bells that would normally not make the cut on my Christmas tree just because it's not my style. But I thought, you know what? These could be so pretty if we took them and spray painted them a more neutral looking color. So I did that. I sprayed all 4 of them, and then I'm going to take some twine and I'm just going to do a simple loop knot down at the bottom, and then I'm going to take that extra piece here and I'm just going to cut it off so it has a nice knot. I added a little bit of hot glue on those pieces so they don't come untied over time, and I made sure that the twine pieces were long enough because we're going to do a loop knot up at the top. So I'm going and making sure that each bell is hanging in the right place. I'm just positioning them and pulling them down as I need to. And then once I've got all 4 of them to where I like them to be, I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to the top, and I'm going to just loop it around my finger, tie a knot, and then I wanted to clean it up, so I actually took another piece of twine and just kind of looped it around and glued it all into place so it looks really pretty when you hang it up on your tree. Now we can leave it here, or we could take it a step further, which is what I always like to do. I like to just keep playing with it until I get it to where I like it. I'm going to take some white paint and I'm just going to lightly, very lightly dry brush all over the bells to bring out that detail that was originally on them. This DIY is super simple. This pine cone came off of a pick from the Dollar Tree that was left over that I hadn't used yet, and with it already having the wire in it, is perfect to turn it into an ornament. So now I know I could probably dip this pine cone into paint, it'd be even faster, but I didn't have a container that had paint in it that was big enough. But I decided to just show you how I did it this way, where I'm just putting the paint down inside the grooves and I'm taking my brush and I'm just tapping it all around until I get it completely covered. If you do have a big bucket of paint, go for it. Dip it in, it'll be even quicker, and it's just so beautiful when you turn it into a solid color. Now I'm going to take that wire up at the top and I'm going to just simply twist it around until it turns into a little hook loop so that we can hang it up on our tree. And then we can leave it like that, but that's just not that pretty. So we're going to go ahead and take some of this buffalo check ribbon, and I'm going to do a simple little loop around, pulling the ribbon through, and then I'm going to bring it all the way down to the bottom to try to hide that wire even more so it's nice and clean and polished and it looks store-bought. So now at the top we have these 2 pieces that are loose, and I love doing this because it makes a nice clean look at the top. We're going to add on some hot glue and we're going to just bring that ribbon over and flatten it down so it's nice and clean and polished up there. And then once that's all in place, go ahead and take a bow, however you would like your bow to be. If you're interested in my bow video, I'll link it down below in my description box. But here is my bow that I'm going to be putting on. I'm just going to add some hot glue and then put that bow right on that joint where the ribbon was looped around, and it's going to conceal all of that, and it's going to look so beautiful when it's hanging up on your tree. I am so excited because this is the first time I have ever done this on my channel, and I hope it will become a tradition. I want to say thank you to all of you for how wonderful this year has been, having you in my life as my viewers. I would like for you to send me a homemade Christmas card, and when I receive it in the mail, I will be doing something back in return. I have 500 Christmas cards to send out to all of you, and I will go until I run out of Christmas cards. Inside each of those Christmas cards, there will be a special gift for every single person who receives one of my cards, and there will be 5 lucky winners to give back. I know this year has been hard on so many people, and I wanted to find a way to give back. Now, this is my address. Send it to my P.O. box. I will be collecting them there all throughout Christmas. The last date to turn them into me is on December 18th. I look forward to reading all of your cards, and I cannot wait to feature some of them here on my channel. So good luck to everyone. I will be announcing this all throughout the month, so make sure you get your Christmas cards sent off to me. And remember, I'm looking for homemade, unique Christmas cards. This craft, we're going to be taking a large pizza pan from the Dollar Tree, a metal welcome word sign from the Dollar Tree, some boxwood greenery from Hobby Lobby, and then some greenery from the Dollar Tree. And by the way, these red peonies are my favorite that they had come out this season. They are so beautiful. I've been using them very sparingly, and they are going to be used on this, and I always am so reluctant anytime I ever get them out because I just think, oh, I'm going to run out, and they're like my favorite. So here I am with my Crop-A-Dile. You saw me punching some holes. I love the Crop-A-Dile tool just because it goes through metal. And once I had those holes all in place where I needed them to, I took out the metal word and the pizza pan outside, and I spray painted them both to make it look nice and high end. And then once I was done with that, I'm going to take some of the garland. I took 2 long strands that would make that curve long enough, and then I zip tied them right to the pan. This is going to make sure that nothing falls off, because friends, I don't trust hot glue on metal. It's just always going to come off. I really like things to look high end and not fall apart when you put them out, especially on your front door. So once I've got that on, I ended up gluing in the berries, some of the boxwood. It's really amazing how when you put on these boxwood stems with that garland greenery from the Dollar Tree, how it just really elevates the look of it. I really love combining different greeneries like that. I think it looks so beautiful. Now I'm taking a ribbon and I'm cutting the tails, and I'm just gluing those down into place, and then I'm going to add on my bow and glue all that down, fluff it out the way that you want it to look, and then I'm going to take some of those red peonies and I'm going to glue 2 of them down lower and then 1 up higher in around the bow, because we're going to add 1 more bow on top of this tan bow. So once you've got all of those glued into place, I'm going to move on, let all that dry for a second, and move on to the word welcome for the front of our sign or our wreath that we're making. And I'm just going to add in some E6000. That's going to really hold it down, and then that hot glue is going to just keep it in place while it continues to dry. Now I wanted to rough up the edges just a little bit because I did like that it had that metally shiny look coming through that gray spray paint. So now I'm going in with some E6000, and you don't have to do this part if glitter is not your thing, but I thought it looked like frost on the pan. I thought this made it look really cute, and it took it from it looking like a pizza pan to looking more like an intentional home decor piece. So I added on some E6000. I'm adding on lots of glitter just so it makes sure it catches all over, and I'm tapping it down to make sure it's just really worked in there. And then I'm going to shake it all off. And then once that's all drying, I went ahead and got 1 more bow that was a gingham bow to add right in the middle. For this DIY, we're going to be using a book that I always am tearing things out from, and one of these plastic ball ornaments. Now these books, I pick them up from the Dollar Tree, so I never feel bad about cutting them up because I'm never planning on reading them. I use them for my crafts because I love the look of text paper, especially for a modern farmhouse look. It just looks so pretty, so pretty. You can even use this text paper with like a retro look. I just think it works for everything, but that's just me speaking. So go ahead and cut them into strips, not too thick. You want them to be thin enough to be able to lay nicely over your ornament. And then you're going to make sure you're cutting off that end part of the page so you don't have that blank paper. You want it to actually have all the text on it because then it'll look more cohesive. Now you're going to take your Mod Podge and you are going to rub that all over the ornament, and then you're going to take those strips of paper and you're going to simply just start gluing them down. Now make sure you get the air bubbles out of them because you want them to lay as flat as you possibly can. For the first few, I let them be nice long strips that came all the way down. And then as I moved on, you don't want it to be clumpy and bulky at the bottom, so make sure you cut them off towards the bottom so it lays nice and flat. Then I went ahead and popped back in the metal top, and I'm going to take some of this buffalo check ribbon. I love this with the text paper. And I'm going to simply just glue it around the rim of it and curl it up onto the side, gluing it all nice and flat in place. Use a popsicle stick where you need to push everything down, because the metal and the hot glue together really heat up strong and it will burn you pretty bad. Then I'm going to take a bow and I'm just going to put some hot glue and just put that right down into place, and it's ready to display on your Christmas tree. This DIY is really easy for anyone who's wanting to try some crafts this Christmas season. Go ahead and take 2 of these different glass stem candle votives that they have at the Dollar Tree over in their home decor area, 2 of these glass jars that they also have there for candles, and then 2 of their candles that they have. Now, to make sure that the glass stays on long term, you're going to take some E6000. You're going to create a circular pattern right there, and then you're going to leave some spaces in between to add in the hot glue. That hot glue is going to dry over time, and it's going to allow that E6000 to really seal and bond the glass together. Now, I like to kind of roll it around on there to make sure everything was nice and glued down. And then once they were all in place, go ahead and take whatever ribbon it is that you like. You can even add some greenery, some berries to this. I kept it really clean and simple to make it look that high-end Pottery Barn look. And I'm just going to take this really pretty ribbon from the Dollar Tree and add a bow and some tails. Then simply add in your candles and you're ready to display. If you haven't heard, I do have another channel that is called Heidi Sonboul Home, and I'm getting ready to start all of my Christmas decor over there. And I'm also over on Instagram. It's a great place to come over and say hi to me and catch up with what I have going on day to day. I'm always posting in my stories and in my gallery. For these DIYs, there are 2 for the price of 1. I don't know how else to say that, but basically they're a set, and they are 2 different DIYs, and I'm going to have 2 different instructions for them. So what we're going to do is, you saw all the supplies. We're going to take these clear ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to use a peach color, and we're going to paint the whole ball, both of them, with it. And this is where they're going to start to change. So on one of them, we're going to make a pink line, just like this. I'm just using my finger. You could use a brush if you don't want to get your finger dirty. And then on the other one, we're going to make 2 pink circles. Now, one is going to be Mrs. Claus, and then the other one is going to be Santa Claus. These are so cute. I saw these as an inspiration. I saw someone selling them online, and they were super expensive. A store was selling them, and I thought, oh, we can make these for like $1.50 instead of paying like $15 to $20 for each one, which is just no way. Friends, we're crafty. We can make these, right? So you saw there I put on 2 little dots for the eyes, and then the nose is kind of like a burnt orange color. And then we're going to take a really fine tip art pen, and we're going to just draw on a little smile. And I made sure I did those little rounded cheeky corners of the smile, because it really makes the cheeks really pop and accentuate even more. Thought this looks so cute. And then we're going to take some puffy paint. Now, I will say, you could always use, instead of puffy paint, you could just use regular paint, but I wanted it to have a popped up, very textured look to it. So I went ahead and put on the puffy paint. Just know that the second that you put this on here, it's going to need to dry overnight, and it's going to take quite some time. If you try to heat this up with your heat gun, it will start to melt the ornament, which will be such a bummer because you've already worked so hard on them. So just make sure that when you do use the puffy paint for the beard and her hair, that you just know that you have the commitment of letting it sit out overnight. And be careful when you put too much hair on her, because it can want to run if it gets too thick. So once that was all dry, and it was the next morning, I went ahead and took one of these wire stems that comes from the picks at the Dollar Tree. I cut it down to the size that I needed, and then I bent it just like this, right in the center. And now I'm going to take my pliers, and I'm going to start to curl out the sides to create mini glasses for Mrs. Claus. This is such a cute detail on these ornaments. And once you get them to twist into a little pair of glasses, you're then going to go ahead and add them on with, I put a little bit of E6000 right in the middle, and then I'm going around the sides with some hot glue, and we're going to secure them down even better. You'll see in a little bit where I'm going to add in even more glue, but I put down the right amount that I needed to get it to just settle on there and stay. How cute is it? Putting on her glasses. I don't know what it is about it, but this little ornament actually reminds me of my mom. I don't know why. I think it's just the little glasses because my mom's the cutest little lady crafter. Now I'm taking my hot glue and I'm just going to build up those corners just a little bit, because one side is going to have some glitter to look like frost, and then the other side is going to have some greenery and berries on it, so it's going to really hold it down nice and secure on her face. Now we're going to move on to her little hat or her little bonnet. And I took some felt, I rolled it over just like this, and I'm gluing it all down so it stays in place. And then once I've got that piece, we're going to move on to the red. Now you can honestly use whatever fabric you want. This is what I had on hand, and I decided to go with this buffalo check or gingham. And I first laid it over, found where I needed the hole to be, and then you can see here that I cut out a hole. And now I'm gluing it all along her hairline, wrapping around the back of her head, and I just keep pulling it and cutting away whatever I don't need to create that nice circled look so it looks like it's on top of her head. So just keep playing with it. This part's really simple. It looks a little complicated, but this part is honestly really simple. You just keep pulling it and playing with it until you get it all settled. Then, to clean up all of those edges and to make it look really polished, we're then going to take that felt that we rolled up earlier, and we're going to just go all along the edge. Now I did kind of a zigzag motion with my hot glue to make sure that I was really getting it all locked into place so it doesn't come off and it looks nice and finished. Now you can see here that I have this gap. I did that on purpose because I didn't want it to be too bulky on this part of the ornament, because if you go too bulky in ornaments, it can tip to the side more on the ornament and making it look crooked. Now I wanted to add in a little bit more of, you know, Mrs. Claus look to it, so I added in some of this lace from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm just pulling it down over the white part to make it look a little more feminine, a little more girly like her. And then over on that spot where I said earlier where I was leaving it open, I'm going to take one of these greenery leaves from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just kind of working with it so it's nice and flat instead of it being all opened up with three. And then I'm going to take some of these berries. I thought it would be so cute to take some berries and add some of those on with it, as well as a bow. So I put down the bow first, got it all in place, and then I'm going to come back in with the berries, and I'm just going to slowly keep bringing them around it until I get it to the look that I want it to look like. And this part is so fun because you really do just get to play with it until you get it as girly as you want her to look. And then I'm going to come in with some hot glue and some Mod Podge two different ways. So first for her cheeks, we're going to rub on the Mod Podge just like this. And then I'm going to lightly put on that glitter because we want it to be more smooth. But then on the other parts we want it to look more frosted, we're going to add on some hot glue, and that's going to make it build up and cake up, making it look really icy and frosty. So I went around her glasses and her hat to really add in that cute detail, and then go ahead and pop back in her top. And then again, to clean up the top area, I'm going to add some more hot glue and some more glitter, and I'm just going to keep playing with it until I get it to the desired look that I want. Once she was all done, I moved her over to the side and moved back over to Santa. And I noticed that after I was done using the puffy paints, I got the desired texture I wanted, but I felt like it was still a little too opaque. So I came on with some white paint, and I'm simply just going over it. And then I decided to bring around some more white paint around the bottom side of the ornament to make it look like, you know, all of his beard coming up around the side. And I just like the way that it looked more than leaving it tan back there, because then it just looks like, you know, I don't know, like incomplete on the back side. Then you don't want it to be too wet. I made sure it was just very damp. I was waiting for it to dry for a few minutes, and then I came back in with a little bit of this dusty glitter, and I'm just sprinkling that all over the white paint to give it some more texture and depth, and I just think it looks so cute. It looks like his beard's all frosty. Now Santa's hat is a little bit different For Mrs. Claus, we used more of a square shape, but Santa's going to be more of a rectangle. You want to make sure that it's going to fit all the way around the width of the ball. So I started up here at the top where his eyes are, and I'm just going to bring it down and around the sides because we're going to make Santa's hat where it, you know, kind of flops over to the side. We want to make that same look. This is where the details really start to matter. Now this DIY is definitely more advanced for a more advanced crafter, but anybody honestly could try this, and it's so fun. This is the reason why I like to show some that are really easy, some that are medium, and some that are more challenging, because I want everybody to have a different opportunity, whatever skill level you are with your crafts, to be able to try it. So once I came all the way around the hat and I glued it up the back to create that back seam, I then brought it up to the top like you saw, brought it over to the side, and then right where the hole is, I pushed it all down around to create that hole. So that way you can still see the hat coming around the back side of the ornament top, and we're able to still see his hat. Really cute. So now I'm going to come back in with that felt, and I'm going to just zigzag along with my glue, cleaning up that line and making sure it looks really good, and then tucking those ends underneath where his hat comes together. At this point I really wanted the felt to come together because I wanted this part to look nice and full here, and it wasn't too bulky. So now at the end of his hat we are going to just put on a leaf, and then we're going to come back in with a couple of these berries again, and we're going to just play with it until we like how it looks. This part is so fun. I loved dressing these two little ornaments up so much, and adding the berries and making them look like a cute little couple for Christmas. And then at the top, to make sure the ornament stays forward, I did my twine trick where I fold the twine in half, go through the hole, take that opening, and then just loop it through so it's a nice little loop knot. I never just tie it because it'll keep it from it wanting to rotate and turn. And I've showed that a lot here on my channel, so if you go back and watch other past videos, I showed in more depth. So here I am at the very end, adding some glitter at the top of him and around his hat and on the berries, and it just looks so perfect for Christmas. He looks so frosty and ready to be displayed on your Christmas tree. Leave a comment down below to let me know which one was your favorite. I hope you felt inspired by this video today and all of these 10 DIYs. Don't forget there will be another one next Tuesday. And don't forget to go check out Holly's channel at Hot Humble Pie. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until the next episode, bye friends.